The left called for defunding the police, knowing full well what would happen next. Chaos. Chaos was the whole point of it. More rape, more robbery, more murder. Those weren't unfortunate byproducts of a noble idea. Those were the intended consequences. Think about that for a minute. The people behind defunding the police tried to destroy society itself. That's not politics. Tearing down civilization isn't a political position. It's something much, much darker than that. It's a kind of spiritual battle. That sounds like overstatement, but it's not. We should understand the stakes here. For a long time, though, we didn't understand them. In fact, when the defund the police movement started this summer, few knew what was going on. As with so many faddish hysterias that sweep our culture, most people just went along with it. They were afraid not to. Everyone else was. So when BLM vandals painted defund the police on a major thoroughfare in Washington, right near the White House, the incompetents who run that city let it stand for months. They were proud of it. They said so. Gadflies like Sandy Cortez from Westchester went on television to explain that defunding the police was cool. It's what all the kids were doing. It's the future, and therefore better.
It's funny because when people ask me what does a world where we defund the police, where defunding police looks like, I tell them it looks like a suburb.
Defunding the police looks like a suburb, just like the one Sandy Cortez grew up in, with lush lawns and pool parties and hip moms and Range Rovers and the pickup line. Fun! But the reality of defunding the police was very different. America's cities did not become suburbs thanks to Sandy Cortez's idea. As summer continued, here's what they looked like. That's not Sandy Cortez's leafy hometown. That's the reality of defunding the police. Our cities burned. The elderly were beaten and killed by thugs. Crime skyrocketed in every metro area in the country. Things fell apart as they were always going to. No normal person in either party could support this. So the architects of defund the police did what they could to silence all discussion of the topic. Shh, don't talk about it. Here's Lisa Bender, the president of the Minneapolis City Council, explaining that Americans who are uncomfortable with their homes being broken into in a world without police must be, and of course you can guess the punchline here, racists. Watch.
Do you understand that the word dismantle or police-free also makes some people nervous? For instance, what if in the middle of the night my home is broken into? Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors, and I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
So calling the police is an act of bigotry. Self-defense is immoral. That was Lisa Bender's position. Again, that's not a political position. That's a religion. But increasingly, that was the posture of the entire Democratic Party. And you know what happened next, inevitably. By August, shootings in New York City had increased by more than 80% over the year before. 80%! There is no precedent for that because it's never happened. Defunding the police was killing Americans in huge numbers. And yet, remarkably, the very people who claim so loudly to care about gun violence decided not to notice what was happening. They never mentioned it. By September, when virtually every person who could afford it had fled the cities in fear of disorder and chaos, Kamala Harris was still repeating the same BLM-approved talking points, still attacking the police. Here she is in a tape she certainly wishes didn't exist.
Black Lives Matter has been the most significant agent for change within the criminal justice system, because it has been a counterforce to the force within the system that is so grounded in status quo and in its own traditions, many of which have been harmful and have been discriminatory in the way that they've been enforced.
If Republicans had been smart, that would have been a political ad last month. Black Lives Matter has been the most significant agent for change within the criminal justice system. What does that mean? Well, Black Lives Matter had only one demand of the justice system, and they shouted it over and over again into bullhorns in our streets. Defund the police! Defund the police! That was their demand. They said so. They didn't hide it. So in many places, the authorities did just that. And you know what happened next. In Minneapolis, which was the first city in America to embrace this lunacy, more than 100 cops are now leaving the force. Crime has become so bad in Minneapolis that the very politicians who once demanded that we defund the police are now begging for more police. That's happening tonight. City officials are now considering bringing in officers from other jurisdictions to restore order and keep citizens from being killed. Violent crime there is up 22% over last year. How'd that happen? You know how it happened, and voters do too. Thankfully, this has been a disaster for the Democratic Party. Not profound enough, but still, no one's for it. Who is for defunding the police? Well, pretty much no one, it turns out. Crime and chaos scare the hell out of homeowners, taxpayers, job holders, anyone with children or pets or cars or furniture or any expectation of life beyond this afternoon. Defunding the police is nihilism, and everyone knows that. Polls show that Hispanic voters really hate the idea, and it's one of the main reasons so many voted Republican last week. You would have to be a desperately unhappy gender studies major with a degree from Duke to think defunding the police was a wise idea. And it turns out that's the entire constituency for it. Unmarried, unhappy gender studies majors from Duke. That's not enough people to win an election. And some of the smarter Democratic leaders are starting to figure that out.
Jimmy Harrison started to plateau when defund the police showed up with a caption on TV right across his head. That stuff hurt Jimmy. And that's why I spoke out against it a long time ago. Right. I have always said that these headlines can kill a political effort.
Jim Clyburn, ladies and gentlemen, telling it like it is. Defunding the police is a bad idea because it can, quote, kill a political effort. Oh, not a bad idea because it kills human beings, thousands of the poorest people in our society, which it measurably does. No one disputes that. No, it's a bad idea because it can kill a political objective. And that's the language the Democratic Party and its leaders can understand. So it's unlikely we'll be hearing a lot more about defunding the police. In fact, no one will ever again use that slogan. At some point, it'll be like it never happened. What was that? Something out of history. But it did happen. And it had massive consequences for all of us. You should remember it.